This video is addressing what to do when you get your final loan modification documents. If you are already a subscriber to the page, welcome back. If not, make sure you subscribe and feel free to ask me a question or leave me a comment. A lot of these videos get brought to mind because people leave comments or ask questions and then I answer them. So if you have something that you're working on and you just want to run it by someone or leave a comment, feel free. Okay, so this video is about final loan modification documents. So what this means is this would apply to you if you have gotten all the way through your loan mod negotiation, meaning you've submitted your full financial package, you've been approved, maybe you went through a TPP, a trial payment period where you made 3 payments, and then the bank at some point is going to send you what's called your final loan modification documents. If you have questions about other parts of the process, there are other videos here about the beginning processes and those documents, but this video is about what you're supposed to do and what you need to be aware of when you get that final packet. So first, you need to understand the timing. So if you are on a TPP, a trial payment plan, you're likely making one payment for about 3 months or so. Once you make your final TPP payment, it takes about 30 days for the bank to send you your final packet. So it's not like you make your final TPP payment on, say, March 1st, and then March 2nd, the bank sends the documents out. They have to actually draft them and write them. And so if you're, a week after you've made your first trial payment to 2 weeks, don't be worried that you haven't received them yet. It usually takes somewhere, between 20 and 30 days. They technically do have 30 days to issue them. So it's okay if you haven't received them immediately. But what you should be doing during this amount of time is calling them every other day to make sure that they're working on it and so that you know when they're about to be mailed. When you call them, what you're trying to ask them is, have my permanent or my final documents been generated yet, and have they been mailed? There will be notes in the system saying when they've been made and when they've been mailed, so you can call and follow up on that. That way you'll know when they're mailed and then you'll know when to expect them. So when you receive them in the mail, it's going to be a really large packet. It can look really overwhelming. Don't be too alarmed, but it is going to be a big packet. It's usually going to be delivered by some priority mail service, typically FedEx, sometimes UPS will bring it to you. So it'll be in a big cardboard packet, and it's going to look like a ton of documents. The reason that there are so many documents is because most, if not all, lenders will send you multiple copies of your loan modification documents. Now, once you get those documents, the very first thing that you want to be aware of is you need to read the execution instructions. I'm going to talk about some of the general execution instructions that are included in these documents, but your lender probably does it a little bit differently than other lenders. So before I get into all of this, what you need to do is go grab your packet and make sure you read the very first page. It'll say execution instructions and follow those exactly. I'm going through some common ones, but your bank might do it differently, so make sure you read them. So the best thing to be aware, or the most important thing to be aware of is how many original copies does the bank want you to send back? Banks do this differently. Some banks require 1 original copy. So what that means is banks only need you to send back 1 copy with your original signature and typically a notary on it, and we'll go through that in a moment. But many banks, especially in a loan modification situation following a default, want you to send in 2 and sometimes 3 original copies. What that means is you'll have to sit in front of a notary and sign with a pen, and the notary will have to put original notary stamps and signatures on 1, 2, 3 original copies, depending on what your bank says. This is kind of unexpected and a little bit unusual. So number 1, just make sure you know how many copies of the original documents you're required to return. It could be 1, it could be 2, and I have seen 3. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you want to go through the documents and you want to identify everywhere that you're supposed to sign. You would think that at the end of your permanent modification documents, you would just sign once at the end above the notary line. Typically, there are other documents included that require signatures. Common names of these documents would be an errors and omission agreement. Sometimes they have you sign a name affidavit. There are several things that require a signature. Those signature lines on those other documents often don't require a notary to stamp underneath it, but it does require you to sign. So once you figure out how many copies you need to send back, then go through and just find your name or you and your co-borrower's name everywhere you're supposed to sign, so you know everywhere you're supposed to sign. The third thing you want to do is review the documents for accuracy. Now, I would strongly recommend if you're able to pay an attorney to just review your documents to be able to tell you what they say and to make sure everything's correct, you should do that. But if you're doing it on your own, it can be a little overwhelming. So the main things you want to review for are the accuracy of the spelling of your names, the accuracy of the property address, and then the accuracy of the numbers. So I see a lot of mistakes where lenders type in the name. There's just a person on the other end of these documents typing in your name. So I see a lot lot of mistakes where a name is misspelled. Don't just execute a document with a misspelled name, because that will get recorded with the county and that could create issues later down the line. Again, if there's an issue with your property address on any of the pages, you want to have that corrected. And there's another video about how to kind of get things corrected, but you want to make sure you look at everything, make sure everything is spelled correctly. And then you want to look at the numbers that they've given you, your principal balance, your maturity date. They should give you the breakdown of your mortgage payment for principal and interest, and then your escrow payment. You should be able to see all of those. You should be able to tell from your modification documents when your loan matures, how much is going to be due at that maturity date, what your monthly payment is going to be, what the term of your loan is, right? You look at all of those things, make sure all of that looks good to you. Be aware if you have a balloon payment, if you have a big amount due at the end of the loan. If you want to sign that, that's okay, but you want to make sure you understand kind of what you're signing. But most importantly, spell your name, make sure your names are spelled correctly, make sure your property address is spelled correctly so that issues don't come up later when they record the documents with the county. So do just like a complete audit, make sure everything looks okay. All right, then it's probably time for you to sign the documents. So number one most important thing is almost all final loan modification documents, with a few exceptions, but almost all require a notary to be present. A notary is somebody who has a notary certificate. Typically, you can go into your bank, the branch of your bank, and ask to sit down with a notary. They will have a notary there who typically can notarize the documents for free. But you basically need a notary in order to sign these documents. And so what that means is don't sign your documents unless you're sitting in front of the notary. So the worst thing you can do is show up, sit down, hand the notary a signed document, and then the notary will say, I can't notarize this because you didn't sign in front of me. So part of the notary requirement is that you're there signing the documents in front of you. So what I always tell my clients is don't sign any of the documents ahead of time. Just bring your blank package, sit down with the notary, and then you can kind of calmly flip through page by page, signing everywhere that you need to sign. And then when it gets to the notary page, you can sign and the notary can do their work there. There is another video posted right after this about common mistakes that notaries make, because you should check the notary's work. So after you watch this video, if you have final mod documents that you're executing, watch the video about the notaries. But basically the most important thing for this video is don't pre-sign your documents. You're not doing yourself any favors. You're gonna have to redo them. So you wanna sign them in front of the notary. And then you make sure that you are signing exactly as listed on the modification documents. And this is probably the most important thing. So my name, right, is Nadia Corridor. I have a middle initial. My middle initial is K. If the lender gives me final loan modification documents and they write my name as Nadia K. Corridor, when I sign those loan modification documents, I need to include my K, my middle initial. If I just sign Nadia Corridor and they have me listed as Nadia K. Corridor, every once in a while, about maybe 20% of the time, really picky lenders will reject the documents because they'll say that the names don't match. So look at how your name is written. Make sure it's correct, A, but if it's correct, if they're including a full middle name or a full middle initial, or conversely, if they've omitted your middle name or omitted your middle initial, don't then sign with a middle initial. And this sounds like an obvious thing, but so many people just have a signature that they do, and then they do their signature and it doesn't match how it's signed, and then they end up in kind of a disaster. So look at how your name is written and sign it exactly as it's written. And my last comment about signatures is don't sign in any weird random way that you've never signed before, right? So the bank has your application on file that you submitted to get this loan modification. They're going to take your signatures on your final loan modification and just kind of hold it up to your application to make sure that the signatures look relatively similar. So this isn't the time for you to like create a new fancy signature or write differently than you've written in the past. Write exactly as you've written in the past and write your name exactly as listed. Last thing to pay attention to with final loan modification documents is to make sure you've read what ink color the lender wants you to use. They will typically tell you most of the time it's black, but there are some lenders who want blue ink. Don't sign in the wrong ink color. You know, you just want to do everything you can to not have to redo these documents. So good luck with your final loan modification package. Remember, find out how many copies you're supposed to return. Don't sign them early, sign in front of a notary, audit your property address, your name, any other personal information to make sure it's correct, and then either have someone review the terms with you or review your own terms and make sure you understand what you're signing. Sign in the correct ink color, sign with your regular signature exactly as listed, and then watch the video I'm gonna post right after this one, which is about common mistakes that notaries make, so that after your notary does her or his part on the documents, you can make sure that they do their work correctly. Good luck.